Welcome back to the Week in Rock.
While the office of the presidency has historically been held by Democrats and Republicans, those two parties first resisted many of the groundbreaking changes that have swept America, such things as civil rights, workers' rights to organize and bargain for better pay, and even the abolition of slavery, all of which originated with a few citizens seeking change. Sometimes those citizens joined together and out of frustration formed alternative political parties, what we now call independent or third parties. In this election year, with Democrats and Republicans having little ideological difference between them, voters are again seeking new parties with new ideas. Here's a look at some of the most prominent options. Recognize any of these faces? Well, they're running for president, and they're after you.
I think young people are turned off the Tweedledum, Tweedledee, corrupt two-party duopoly called Republican Democrat. So looking for something new, and I think if they're going to trust anything in politics, they've got to create it, and that means new parties.
In '92, independent candidate Ross Perot won a whopping 19% of the vote. But reaching voters in '96 is even easier because candidates, even ones who don't have much money, are making use of new technology.
Now, you see, with new parties starting around the country, people can communicate virtually free over the internet. And that wasn't true in 1992 or 1988. But that's the future of politics, and young people ought to be able to expand that enormously.
The men who live in this house don't come from independent parties, but some of what they do once inside is in response to them. Third parties don't live long, but they can affect policy. An American historian once said that third parties are like bees. They sting and then they die. So the question is, will Bill Clinton or Bob Dole feel their sting? Take Ross Perot, for example. When he ran for president in 1992, he not only bolstered the chart-making business, but he made the often ignored issue of balancing the budget everyone's problem. And 4 years later, the deficit has been cut in half. This time around, Perot is shooting for more than just the presidency. He's trying to build a lasting third party.
There's something we're going to do that's very important. We're going to endorse the candidates committed to reform in every House and Senate race. We can provide the swing vote to get those people elected.
The tough talking Texan has a challenger for his party's nomination this election, former Colorado Governor Dick Lamb, who doesn't have as much name recognition but has more specifics about how he wants to change our government.
For years, American people have said that they seek leadership which is fiscally conservative and socially moderate. But both political parties continue to only represent one side of that equation. I strongly believe that the two goals need not be mutually exclusive. In fact, they can be and they will be the basis of a new winning coalition.
The Green Party's candidate, longtime consumer crusader Ralph Nader, is so popular in California, Democrats are worried he could hurt President Clinton in a state he must win this November. Although Nader accepted the environmentalist Green Party's invitation to be their candidate because they share the same goals, he's not wild about campaigning and won't even join the party. But the reluctant candidate is very serious about putting government back in the hands of the people, even if he doesn't get elected.
The purpose of it is to build a political movement of progressive nature for the future, bring a lot of young people into it, focus on what corporations are doing to our country in a bad way, and to get people to realize that as taxpayers, workers, consumers, and voters, they're pretty much shut out of the system, and they need the tools of democracy to grab control of their country and their future.
The U.S. Taxpayers Party was the focus of attention earlier in this presidential race when Republican challenger Pat Buchanan threatened to bolt the GOP and maybe run as their candidate. The U.S. Taxpayers Party wants to sharply restrict the role of federal government and to restrict abortion. Libertarians are on the most ballots and believe in less government intervention across the board, way less. Their candidate, Harry Brown, wants to get rid of the income tax altogether, legalize drugs, and let the federal government run at its bare-bones minimum.
If I'm president and I get my way, the government will be limited to the functions in the Constitution. National defense, the judiciary, minting coins, and, I don't know, a few White House tours, maybe. But that's it.
For quantum physicist John Hagelin of the Natural Law Party, meditation is key. The Natural Law Party believes that it prevents stress-related illness and drug addiction and even cuts crime. But before you start thinking this guy's quantumly loopy, remember that it wasn't too long ago that exercise as a stress reliever was seen as a crazy idea.
We are a little bit ahead of our time. But any surfer would know that if you're going to ride a wave, you've got to be a little bit ahead of the wave, in this case, the wave of rising collective consciousness. We're giving expression to new ideas and helping to shape public opinion in a more forward-looking, prevention-oriented and crucial direction.
The chance of a scientist, or any third-party candidate for that matter, winning the election is slim. But if they get enough votes like Ross Perot in 1992, their candidacies and the ideas they stir up can serve as a wake-up call to those who actually do win.
And so we have to break up this system. The way you do it with new parties, that break up the two-party system, it's going to take maybe 8, 12 years, but, you know, it's like planting a tree. You do it now.
As interest in third party grows, Democrats and Republicans who control who gets on the ballot in each state are making it harder for third party candidates to get on the ballot. Last year, 14 states tried to make their ballot laws more restrictive, but after press exposure, only 7 succeeded. It's nearly impossible to win ballot access in some states unless campaigns enlist paid workers to collect signatures for them. Like in Texas, where independent candidates have 65 days to gather over 60,000 signatures from voters registered as independents only. Even once they're on the ballot, independent candidates face an uphill battle. The government gives the Democratic and Republican presidential candidates some $60 million to use during the election. No independent candidate running this year is eligible for any federal money, except for Perot.
Support your local billionaire. That's it for this edition of the Week in Rock. Do join us next week when we'll be braving the scorn and contempt of the reunited Sex Pistols, smoking some grooves with the Fugees,
and checking out Howard Stern, the movie, and the nuts and bolts of the convention season.
We'll see you then.
Here's some more Dirty Dancing.
How serious the convention here has been, and how the absence of balloons and all that, you don't see that, you know.
No pyro.
There's no manager in terms of balloon inventory, balloon ascension, balloon rate of declension, etc.
Well, how about let's say in San Diego, no one was allowed to talk about abortion. Is there an equivalent issue here at the Green Party convention?
Now everything's on the table. All issues are on the table. In fact, these big party conventions are full of taboos. They're full of self-censorship, things that you don't talk about. For example, there was no talk at the Republican convention, obviously, about corporate crime, about billions of corporate welfare to rich corporations, from small taxpayer contributions. There's nothing about serious campaign finance reform, nothing about education. So, I mean, the fact that Republicans are supporting cutting back student loans, for example, that was not discussed. The epidemic of corporate crime, which is printed and published constantly in the Wall Street Journal, that wasn't discussed. But here, everything's discussed. Everything is on the table. There's nobody auditioning speakers, making sure they provide audition tapes, making sure every single phrase is settled on. You know, it's almost as if it was a virtual reality, the Republican convention.
For a couple of decades, I guess in the late 1800s, conventions actually were not decided beforehand who the nominee was. What is the situation there?
Basically, no, but I couldn't. As a matter of fact, the Green Party is in favor of a binding none of the above. So if Greens go to vote, or anybody goes to vote, and they don't like me on the ballot, they don't like any of the other candidates, they can vote none of the above. And if none of the above gets more votes in any election, local, state, federal, it cancels the election and sends the candidates packing and orders new elections. So therefore, it allows a protest vote. You know, most people may not realize that the only thing you can do when you go to vote in America is vote yes. You cannot vote no. If you want to vote no to everyone, you stay at home and you don't vote. But that doesn't count.
You want us to keep walking?
Yeah, it was good in the sunlight, so maybe we'll take a couple more steps and just get for you, Steve, and just do a couple more questions.
He's walking in the shade. Okay. Yeah, let's just step up.
Could everybody move back to the cameras in the room here? Thanks.
He never saw. I got long legs. Sorry. All right. Baby steps. Explain to me the purpose of this convention in terms of the Green Party nomination.
Well, a political convention, obviously, its prime purpose is to nominate the candidates. It shouldn't be rigged. It shouldn't be done behind closed doors. It should be an open process. It should be competitive. And the second purpose is public education and learning. So we can learn about the issues. It's not every week that we debate these issues in our country. Our country is on television. It's almost all entertainment. And there comes a time when people have to be serious if they're going to have a country where they can enjoy themselves.
For people who are curious about the Green Party, who are not necessarily delegates or members, who wander in and learn about the issues here?
Yes, you don't see any particular restrictions. The important thing, though, is the Green Party hasn't yet constituted itself as a legal national party. They have state parties, but that's what they're going to be doing this year because it's such a new party. And that's what I think.
They're going to become national this year through this convention? Or?
Yeah, they're going to get themselves organized. And that's what is so attractive for young people because young people are turning. They don't trust the old-style corrupt politics, and this is a party that they can help create right from the beginning.
Should we get, this is one of the key questions. One second, can we get this done? Yeah, let's get up here. You want to stand on those stairs?
Yeah, everybody upstairs here, please.
Okay.
He's not going anywhere.
No, we'll wait till he's done. Steve, let's just shoot it here. Stand still. Is that okay?
We need you to move back to the please.
That's good? Okay.
One of the largest questions that we're looking at is, sort of tackling the idea of whether history moves on by itself or great men move history. How much personality has to do with the passions and the passions of political parties. The U.S. Taxpayers Party, for instance, had a lot more legitimacy and had a lot more power when Buchanan was a possible candidate for them. What do you think about that idea? Do you think that great men move history or that history moves by itself?
I think it's a combination. If you want superficial, temporary visibility to your party, then you want to have a highly visible person. There's nothing left after the election unless the person wins. What really makes political reform real is when a lot of people do their self-reliant thing. They become civically active, they become leaders, and they try to produce new leaders, not a lot of followers. And that's why I like the Green Party's philosophy.
What do you say to somebody who says that the Green Party would be virtually ignorable if you weren't their candidate?
Well, I don't think they're ignorable because they are filing at local level in terms of candidates. You got to make sure you don't judge a political movement entirely by the mass media publicized, because there are a lot of things that surprise people in the mass media when a political movement like the right-wing evangelical came up. Where did this come from? We didn't hear about it because it was building quietly without much publicity over large parts of the South.
School districts and small areas like that. Did you mentioned the Elizabeth Colbert article in the New York Times. Did you also read the article on the new left? I mean, what is left of the left, I guess, was the premise of it as well. Do you agree with, do you see the Green Party as a left-wing party? Do you see it as having a progressive agenda?
As a progressive agenda, which includes a lot of people who wouldn't call themselves progressive. For example, universal access to the processes of government. For example, getting campaign money out of corruption, all of this. Clean, healthy environment, universal health care, a sustainable economy that doesn't eat the seed corn of the timber, the natural resources, so it can provide good jobs for future generations. And also, I like the Green Party's emphasis on what it has to offer young people. It talks about student loans and how many young people will not be able to afford to go to college if the Republicans succeed in cutting back student loans. people not only can change the world, but it's hard to find out who else will.
Do you think that even though in the past sort of left politics and liberal ideas were associated with maybe an elitist, utopian idea, do you think it's now moving into what you just touched on, and more inclusiveness and politics at much more of a local level?
Very much so. You see, as more people lose their jobs, as people take pay cutbacks, they lose their pensions, corporations export jobs. Those impacts don't just deal with conservatives or liberals or whatever. They affect everybody. It's just like getting your car recalled. It's a defect. It doesn't matter whether you're a conservative or a liberal or an anarchist. You want that company to recall your defective car so you can have a safe car.
The last question I have is, do you know anything about the U.S. Taxpayers Party? Are you familiar with their agenda? We're comparing the two parties. And Howard Phillips, their candidate, said that actually he had a lot in common with you in terms of GAT and corporate welfare and NAFTA. Do you see any comparison or contrast between the Green Party and the U.S. Taxpayers Party?
On corporate issues, there's an interesting convergence between some conservatives like Buchanan and Phillips and progressives and liberals, because corporations basically make governments undemocratic. And whether you have one viewpoint or not, you want to be heard. Corporations don't like ordinary people to be heard. They have their own way of controlling and dealing and financing politicians. But on civil rights and civil liberties, there is still a very broad gap between the Green Party, for example, and the right-wing parties. But what's interesting is that more and more people are calling themselves conservatives who are not corporatists. And I think there's going to be an interesting union of efforts that started in the fight against NAFTA and GATT that will be coming in the future.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. Did we get done our time allotted? Huh? How much? Can't be that much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. No, we're good. We'll get the speech, and we've got a lot of young people to interview, and we're happy. Thank you very much. Nice to see you again.